welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers lose on the road to Rutgers by a score of 74 to 63. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms, and we will break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. But let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And on a very positive note, the Assembly Call family has increased by one, as Jerod Morris and Heather have welcomed a healthy baby boy as of 6 o'clock Central Time. And we are very thankful for the health of the baby and the mother, and just a positive on a night that has been really difficult for a lot of us. So congratulations to Heather and Jerod. I'm calling him Little Coach. I don't care what you say. You can keep him away from me, Jerod, so that doesn't stick. But that's our banner moment. As far as the basketball game goes, outstanding start by the Hoosiers, but that was about it. After the first 12 minutes of really solid defense and offense, I think both sides of the basketball kind of went away as Rutgers took a 4-point lead going into the half. In the last 8 minutes, outscoring Indiana 27-8. Coming out in the second half, not much changed, and then a turning point. Indiana was within 6, and again the free throw situation reared its head, and two missed free throws, which could have cut it to 4 and given Indiana a little bit of life. Didn't happen, and then hot shooting by the Rutgers guards, whether that was lack of defense or just hot shooting, I think is a combination of both. It was very difficult for Indiana to find any solution tonight. In the game at Rutgers, which now leaves Indiana 2 games below 500 in the Big Ten at 7-9 and 12-11, and a real tough game coming up this Saturday against a top-ranked Michigan opponent. So a night where there are a few positives, and we'll talk about those briefly, and there were a lot of tough situations. We're going to focus a lot on the game tonight and decisions by players and coaches within the game. We're going to try to keep all of the macro conversations away. And we know they're big and we know they're real. We don't want to dismiss those, but we are going to be a game analysis show for a while, and there's some things to analyze here this evening. So our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 4th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call. With the frigid temperatures still around the entire country, you really shouldn't be wearing anything other than the super soft hoodies and crew necks. So you need to make your way over to their website, homefieldapparel.com. They have something unique for everyone, especially IU fans, and all of their apparel is printed on the softest, warmest, most comfortable, and most washable materials you'll find anywhere. Want a few suggestions? The last item I purchased was I did buy a couple Indiana shirts for Mrs. Tonsoni. I have a Seton Hall shirt that's recent. So there's lots to offer. And remember, it's not just IU gear. As I mentioned, there's 90 different colleges and universities with new ones being added all the time. So follow Homefield on Twitter as well. Their designs are unique, interesting, and vintage that you may end up like myself, buying shirts and hoodies for schools that I don't even like, but I like the designs. And you can always save on your Homefield order by using the promo code Assembly20 at checkout. It will give you 20% off your entire order throughout the year. So go to homefieldapparel.com, load up your shopping cart, and enter Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off. That's homefieldapparel.com. Okay, it's time now to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Ryan, we'll start with you. What's your rant this evening on tonight's loss?
I know we're going to keep this analysis strictly on this game, but what I would say is I saw a lot of people discussing individual players tonight and the problems with those players and this and that and the other thing. At this point, I don't think you can blame the players anymore. And let's not get it twisted on the final score. Indiana lost by 11. That's a 20-point road loss in a game that was very critical, especially after the blown game against Michigan State and some of the other losses this season. This was a critical game for Indiana to put itself back firmly in tournament conversation. I know some places have them on the 11 line or whatever, but you have to win this game. And they come out and they take a lead by 15 and lose by what is essentially a 20-point loss. They made up some points in garbage time because Jordan Geronimo all of a sudden can hit threes. I'm sorry, but when this team displays the same problems all season and does not improve, do not get mad at the players. Rob Finney isn't putting himself in the game for these long stretches. Trey Galloway, who has really struggled over the last few weeks, I know he has a back injury. He's out there not doing much for, what was it tonight, 26 minutes, and not really adding anything on either end of the floor. He's not a great defender, and offensively, he's really struggled over the last couple weeks. He had one nice drive, but then he tried to do it again and it got blocked. I know Armaan Franklin got hurt. Obviously, that's an unforeseen circumstance. But the same thing is happening over and over and over and over again. And as a team, Indiana is doing the same thing over and over and over again. And when you do that and it's not successful, continuing to do that isn't on the players. They're not the ones out there calling plays. They're not the ones out there making substitutions. They're not the ones out there with a guy who can shoot the ball and Anthony Leal sitting on the bench and no offensive flow and not going to him. They're not sitting there when there is no energy on the floor and not putting Jordan Geronimo or someone just to change it up. I'm not saying those guys make it better, but it's a change from when you are getting blasted off the court at Rutgers. Again, let's not get it twisted what happened tonight. Rutgers embarrassed Indiana. They were shooting threes off their back foot, just falling away, throwing alley-oops, dunking on them and talking trash. I mean, this is Rutgers. It's not Michigan. You know, you're on the road at Rutgers in year 4 of your program, and you're getting smoked and run off the floor. That can't happen at Indiana. And we're not talking about the macro of the program. I'm talking about where we are right now in this season. You cannot be performing like this at this point of the season. You're supposed to be getting better later in the year. And if anything, Indiana is getting worse. And I realize, again, Armaan Franklin's had an injury. That's unfortunate. But other teams have found a way to navigate injuries. I know the Big Ten is very difficult, and it's every night it's a battle. Other teams and other coaches have figured it out and get it done. Fran McCaffrey's got a good team at Iowa. You know, I mean, Juwan Howard's in his second year at Michigan, and they're unstoppable. Holtman is doing great at Ohio State. Underwood, his program at Illinois is humming in year 4. There's something wrong here, and it's not working. And we've discussed it before, but I don't think it's ever been as obvious as tonight. Rutgers was beating Indiana up and down the floor. That's hustle and that's effort. And I don't put that on the players. I put that on because if that's happening and you don't get back down the floor defensively, you should be yanked from the game. You shouldn't be in there for 30 minutes. And so I just don't know where we're at in this season or what we have to look forward to. I'm going to stay an Indiana fan. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to root for these guys and not root for these guys and all of that. But I don't know where you can find the light at the end of the tunnel here because it feels like it's getting worse, not better. And it's the same problems every single game we're seeing, and it's not getting better. And I understand everybody's frustrations. I do. But at this point, your anger should not be aimed at the players because we're in year 4 of a program, and this coach picked these players and puts them in the positions they're in. So the adults in the room are the ones responsible for this. And so I don't know what the answers are. I don't know where we're at. I don't know the finances of Indiana University, all of that stuff. So I don't know what's going to happen. But this can't be it. This can't be the answer. Whatever's going on needs to change. And I don't know if that's just radical changes in practice, radical changes in lineups, whatever. But it's not okay. And it's never going to be okay.
Ryan, I have no problem with what you say, but it can't also just be not the player's fault. Rob Finney comes out and hands the ball off 2 straight times. That's not in the game plan. That was poor execution.
You're right.
of point guard play. That's
he
not
stayed in the game, Coach.
Yeah, well, he sat for about 10 minutes of the first half. When he came back in, there was a negative run. But you know, tonight what you saw was a missed shots when shots were open. So I agree. You gotta move people in and out of the lineup. You gotta take
and you got to develop them.
You got to go do those things. You have to do those things. And ultimately, the head coach is the head of the program. And regardless of missed shots or whatever, you've got to get guys to play better. But when you're a college basketball player, there were some plays made tonight by these guys, and I like them. They're good guys, and I know they care. And I said that the last time I was on the show, and I know all of that. But it is from top to bottom, coaching staff and players, people not doing what they need to be doing.
The bench is a tool, Coach. You know that as well as anyone.
But the bench came in and threw the ball around and turned the ball over and handed. I mean, no coach in
I'm not
America,
saying it would have gotten better, but you could send a message or something. You're going to lose by 20 at Rutgers.
Yes, I agree with that. And I'm totally – this was embarrassing and this was tough. But I am tired of seeing players just hand the ball to the other team. I don't know a drill.
So am I.
I don't know a drill that I can do in practice that stops guys from going into game and just literally putting the ball in front of a top defender like Young on a weak crossover. And that ultimately rests with the coach. I get that. And I know that's where everyone's at right now, and that's good, and I understand that's going to be a major decision.
Too,
That's true. But in this game tonight, it was all about guards. And that's where I'm going to stay to focus on this game. The guards, whether they're developed, not, whatever you want to say, the guards did not perform except for L. Durham. And I thought L. Durham played one of his better games, and he picks up 4 fouls, and that becomes an issue. But this is a problem. The coaches aren't doing things right. There's a disconnect between what they're trying to accomplish and what's being heard. And then the team has had a bunch of body blows. The pressure of this year, the pressure of losing, and I thought that their effort in the last 10 minutes was not what they had done previously. And that's again on Archie, and that's again on the players. That was the most disappointing when it went from that 4-point lead. That is reminiscent of what happened in the last year when they'd play well until about the 14-minute mark on the road, and then it would just go away, and it'd go away fast. We had a reoccurrence of that. And the program's just in disarray. From top to bottom, 1 through 30, director of basketball operations, everyone right now. But the players got to play better too. They just
don't disagree. Don't disagree.
They just got to play better, and they got to be able to take coaching, and they got to be able to handle adversity. When things are going well, it's nice. When things don't go well, there's a lot of head hanging, and that could be an atmosphere thing. But real tough competitors keep fighting no matter what the score is, and that was a little disappointing. Andy, we're going to send it to you. Your thoughts and comments on tonight's game.
I was just going to let you guys just take it the rest of the way. And,
we can. I mean, we'll give you a night off.
I'm sure that you would. I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle of you guys. I think tonight exposed a lot of the issues that IU has from a guard play perspective. I mean, when you look at the stats, they got into Rob right away. They got into Lander and really disrupted everything that IU was doing. And so when you look at primary ball handlers, if you think, if you kind of combine Rob and Christian, they're a combined 0 for 10 from the floor with 2 assists and 6 turnovers. If you combine Geo Baker and Jacob Young, they got 30 points, 17 assists. And yeah, they turned the ball over 6 times, but they were, some of that was late when they were making plays. I mean, that ultimately to me was so disruptive. And then you saw again with IU, they got off to a good start. That problem seems to have been fixed to a certain extent. And then I just felt like and part of this we can talk about lineup changes that may have led to this, but we also just saw a team that really kind of let up. They took a breath. They allowed Rutgers to get confidence. I swear the last time they played Rutgers, the story coming in was how bad Ron Harper Jr. shot the ball. And then they said it again tonight, and I'm just waiting on it.
Guys get well against Indiana, man. They do.
But I just felt like they would relax. They continue to struggle to contain dribblers, and they help too quickly, it feels like at times, and leave guys open for threes and then get in rhythm, and then everything's kind of rolling downhill. Then they're hitting threes with a hand in their face. But some of those initial ones, it just is the same thing with the Michigan State game. They get a lead. Can you really put somebody away? And in the end, you have a 35-point swing. And we can talk about the offense as well, because for a lengthy stretch of game time, they scored 20-some points for probably better than a half of basketball when you kind of count when that run started, midway through the first half into the second half. So there, the problems were many and the solutions were few. Both from a player and a coaching standpoint. I think you see a team that is just mentally fragile and mentally broken. And I feel like we've said the same thing in other recent years, and they're searching for answers and the coach is searching for answers. And I think it just leads to that kind of total system failure feeling of things, is that I think Archie thinks he knows what the right buttons to push are. They don't seem to work. We can debate some of those things from a decision-making standpoint over the course of the game in terms of who was in and out and how some of those things work. Like, he just doesn't have a pulse on the team that says this is the button to push that's going to work. And so I think everybody's just throwing stuff out there, throwing guys out there, throwing combinations together, and trying to hope that something works that you can grasp onto, and that just isn't happening. And then you get into that part late in the second half. I really, for most of the parts of the season, even when things hadn't been going well, I didn't really feel like effort was an issue, but the effort became an issue, and perhaps rightfully so, because the game is going so poorly. It totally gotten away from them. But that was one of the first times it just really felt like the effort wasn't there. Execution is one thing that we've seen issues with and struggles with. You're playing hard, but you're not playing well. I thought guys stopped playing hard at a certain point when the game seemed out of reach, and it certainly was out of reach at that point. So I don't know. That kind of hit a bunch of ground there, but it's just there's not one thing to point to. There's lots of issues on the floor, off the floor, all of it, and it just you try to. And I know we're talking more about this game, but you just try to spin that forward. I just don't know how this team picks itself up off the mat, because even Rutgers hits one or two shots to take a 15-point lead under 10 points, and you just see them tighten up as they go through that situation. And so you're going to go into these last few games that are kind of entering must-win territory. I don't know that the mentality is there. I don't know that the coach is able to push the right buttons to get it to a place where you can feel comfortable going into these games at all.
And that's where, Ryan, you're absolutely correct, is that this atmosphere in this team right now is bad. It's just a bad vibe. And somehow they're getting good starts. They're executing. The plan coming out in the first 12 minutes was fantastic. And both what Indiana was doing and the execution of it was fantastic. You're sitting there at the 8-minute mark going, well, it was 23-11 with 7:30 to go in the half. And everyone had to be feeling pretty good, like, okay, this is a great response. And then from that point on, and that's that atmosphere. And that's where the buttons being pushed are not being pushed hard enough or to completion or whatever, because this team is still not as tough as they need to be, both physically and mentally. Nothing speaks more to me, and we'll talk about it in meaningful moments, but that loose ball rebound where two guys go and Ron Harper taps it back in the lane and gets kicked out for a three late in the first half. You secure that rebound, and you're still up. And then once the ball goes in, that makes shooters feel better. And you saw it with Ron Hunter Jr. today. He gets one loose like that, and then all of a sudden he was sticking out his tongue, having a good free time. One loose ball can make a difference. Every possession matters. And then at the end, you get a steal at the half, a rebound steal at the last second for a shot goes in. This team lacks toughness. They're good people, but it lacks toughness. And ultimately, that is what Ryan's talking about, is when you lack toughness in game 23, that is a problem in the program that needs to be fixed. Whether it's benching, whether it's yelling, whatever it is, it has to be fixed, or and maybe it's too late.
I just want to point something out. Indiana was up 23-8. And until garbage time, got outscored 68-32, like 68-32 against Rutgers. Like this wasn't a great team, and that's, I don't know where you go with that. Like I don't, and Andy's right, and he's saying that I don't know what the answer is or how you do anything in that situation. It's just I don't know. I don't know what you do there. And you can't have that happen, though. I mean,
no, but what was the reason? And that's the stuff I would like to talk about. What was the reason? At 7:30, they had gotten TJD out for a minute. And I know everyone's mad about taking people out, but they had to find some rest for him somewhere. And they took him out around the TV timeout, which a lot of coaches do. And at 7:30, they put TJD back in and Finney back in, and Franklin was in. If I have the lineup right. And that 3-minute segment, because it was 7:30 to 3:55, so 3.5 minutes, Indiana was -7. So you had your starters in that went plus 11 at the beginning. You had them in at the same time as -7. What changed right there? It was a few. I have written down Franklin misses a couple shots, and Rob came back in and struggled. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 the 3-point shots, and that's when the toughness kind of just evaporated. And it was like that body blow at 7:30 to 3:53 today sent IU reeling into what Andy was saying, that just mental chasm, and they couldn't recover. I don't think they really recovered the whole second half, to be totally honest. They came out at halftime flat, in my opinion, and they haven't done that before. But what happened, if we could go back and find a play-by-play between 7:30 and 3:53, and then even the 7:30 to the end of the half was just atrocious. It was just bad basketball. But it was great basketball for 12. So why is it
Rutgers
so,
made
why
an
is it
adjustment.
so up and down, you know?
Rutgers made an adjustment. Indiana came out. They were throwing the ball to the guards at the high post and pick and rolling right there with Trace Jackson Davis. And it worked a few times. And then Al Durham was also able to get free into the corner, which is the place he shoots threes the best. And that's what happened. I mean, it was just TJD and Al Durham hitting shots. Trace came out on fire, got a few screen and rolls. And then Rutgers adjusted to that, which if you're coaching, you know that's going to happen eventually. So you got to have a backup plan. And whatever the backup plan is just didn't work because Rutgers was able to be aggressive on the guards, as Andy pointed out, shut off the dribble handoffs as much as possible and the easy passes to the wing. I mean, you've seen Rutgers play. You know that they can do that. Like, why are you not having, other ways to get the ball into guys and get things going? I don't, and again, the players didn't execute. But again, it didn't feel like there was a second plan there. Like the plan off the jump to have those screen and rolls with TJD and all that worked out very well. And then after that, there wasn't a secondary plan once they countered that worked. And so I just, it's like you got to have a secondary plan. You got to have a third plan, a fourth plan, a fifth plan. You got to have backup plans. And they started trying to do the pick and roll stuff again. And it had varying degrees of success. I mean, there were a couple times Trace got free for easy dunks. But overall, it didn't really get that much better at any point after that. Once Rutgers adjusted what they were doing defensively, there was no answer for Indiana.
Andy, go back to the mental aspect of the confidence, if you will. You mentioned that. I thought in those first 12 minutes they executed freely and even took some tough shots, maybe some bad shots, but they didn't let it bother them. Franklin missed a pull-up two in transition that I thought might have been a little early. But to me, they played freely in the first 12 minutes. And then once things got tight, man, the last 45 minutes, it was not. And whether that was the sub-pattern or the play calls or whatever, the team as a whole did not play loose and aggressive from there on.
Yeah, to me, I thought they played with really good pace in the first half. And again, I think at the beginning of the first half, and I feel like a lot of this is a broken record, and we're doing the same show over and over again. But I just thought they were free, as you said, got out in transition, pushed the ball, found Al in the corner. We're executing quickly on offense, got those screen rolls to TJD, and then once Rutgers really started to take away some of those first reads that IU had, it really turned into a slog at that point. And during that stretch, I was looking back. I think I found the spot in the play-by-play coach. This continues to be a team that just gives up these huge runs with defensive lapses. And we've talked about whether them making shots makes them better defensively, more intent defensively, whatever the case may be. But in that stretch, so they make a three coming out of one of those plays. Rob makes a turnover. They make a three. Race actually scores inside. They give up a lob. Armand misses a jumper. Rutgers makes a three. Then Rutgers turns the ball over their next possession, make another three on not a second but a third opportunity, turn the ball over again. Then it's another lob, two more made threes, and then you get that, you miss a shot at the end of the half, but the TJD gets the ball taken away, and it just was just the lapses on that end of the floor for long periods of time, and the offense was not good during the same stretch, but they just didn't guard at the same way that they did before in the game. And I think they just when shots go in, that dictates how intent they're going to be defensively. And they relaxed enough to give Rutgers a little bit of confidence. And that was kind of all she wrote at that point.
Yeah, I agree. Once you give up some free turnovers and some free, runouts on bad shots, Rutgers got going, and then Indiana didn't guard. But some of that is bad offense. If you're not getting guys in the right spots, if the guards aren't playing, if you're not having the right players, all that stuff, if offense is bad, then that could lead to good offense for the other team. And I thought we lost it when we only I thought we were guarding really well in the second and third segments and only were +1 in those two segments. You didn't stretch the lead out from 15-4. That was bad offense. And then all of a sudden, bad shots, bad handle in that bad segment. And then all of a sudden that led out to, we call them pick sixes when you turn the ball over and they go down. And you're in rotation defensively on fast break too. We had 3 guys stop the ball at the basket and they kicked it out. That's just bad communication defensively at that point. And then I do think they hang their heads and don't guard much later. So speaking of bad execution, I accidentally put a comment up on the screen, and we've been trying to talk and listen and figure out. So that's bad execution on my part. I know Jerod.
We got to figure it out. I picked you up. I think we're okay.
Okay, you figured out how to get rid of that. So thank you for doing that and trying out some different screens here, trying something to stay within it. But what other storylines happened tonight that you guys feel we need to address?
I will say I thought I'll try to be as positive as one can be given the circumstances. I thought Al Durham played really well. I thought he got him off to a good start, and then whether it was fouls, Rutgers defensive adjustments, you might have thoughts on that, Coach. I thought IU got away from running things for Al, and there was another play. I think it was late. It was before Geronimo started hitting threes. They ran a set out of a timeout. Ray set a nice screen to get Al open, and it's to a certain extent, it just takes me back to those conversations that feels like we've had so many times. It's like, how do we allow him to do what he does best? And it just seems like too often that's not the case. They went to him to try to initiate offense a little bit in this one when Rob was struggling against the pressure, bringing the ball up the floor. We talked about how that isn't really an area that he excels. I think Armand was limited because he didn't play in the second half. I don't know if that played into the decision to not have him do that in the first half. But I did think Al really in a big spot where you would want a senior leader to show up to help get you off to a good start. Played really well, had a couple drives to the basket where he got, where he missed, but he had a nice drive in a key moment when I felt like Rutgers was starting to come back. He made a basket to kind of stem the tide for a minute. It wasn't very long, but was able to go to the basket, made some nice passes. I thought Al had a good game, and but it was another game where you had 2 guys do the bulk of the scoring. And again, you kind of throw out that last stretch where Geronimo ends up getting 8 points. Al and TJD had 41 between them. And until, Geronimo scored those 8, that would have been 41 out of 51, or I guess it'd be 55. But either way, you just weren't able to get contributions from enough guys. And I know the Franklin injury is a challenge, but I do think, Al coming down the stretch in his senior year, I thought that was impressive of him to step up. The fouls really limited him. I think that's really when the effort started to die off in the second half. When he went out with that 4th foul, I thought everything really kind of went downhill because you saw guys say, he's one of the only guys putting the ball in the basket. He's going off the floor for who knows how long. And I thought that was kind of the tipping point from an effort standpoint, but maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
There were tipping points all over this game, I think, Andy. But no, Al especially started hot. What do you have, 14 in the first half? And I just felt like you're right. In the second half, it didn't feel like they looked to get him. Now, Rutgers was probably overplaying him because he was the only guard that was doing anything. I mean, Franklin, while he was injured, was 0 of 3, 0 of 1 from 3, very off on all of his shots. Like, he was not anywhere near. Finney, 0 of 7, 0 of 2 from 3. And he was off on everything too. I mean, nothing, these shots weren't close. These weren't shots that were going in and out and stuff. They were off by a foot every direction for all these guys. And so when you only have one guard who showed up to play, it's easy to overplay and make sure he doesn't get free for a 3 or something like that. And you saw a couple times Al drove and tried to make something happen and got, there was contact, but I don't know if it was enough for a foul or maybe they contacted the ball. You couldn't really tell at full speed.
Not in this game. It wasn't enough for enough for a foul
seriously.
To be called, that for sure.
And so I just felt like you've got one guy going. You need somebody else to step up to help him out, and nobody really did. And again, you look at the box score, and it's obvious what happened here. Trace and Durham were playing well, and Rutgers overplayed both of them, and nobody else stepped up. There was no third scorer. Jerome Hunter tried a couple times, didn't really get anything going. Galloway had one drive that worked. Finney 0 of 7. We got to talk about Anthony Leal. I don't know if we need to break or anything, but We've got to talk about
I don't know that it matters. I mean, we do, but
going.
we can do that after a break here a little bit and start with that.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Coming up, as we can continue our breakdown of this sad loss to Rutgers, we'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed, including some Anthony Leal talk, and then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most sad statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is AJ Moye. What's the only thing better than upsetting Duke in the Sweet 16? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach for the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Brian Tonsoni here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, and we're breaking down Indiana's loss tonight to Rutgers, and it's time for some meaningful moments that you might have missed or just some further discussions on what went wrong this evening. Ryan, you were mentioning Anthony Leal. I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on Anthony tonight?
Look, Anthony Leal hasn't played much the last few games, and Trey Galloway has been playing a lot. And I know Archie loves Trey Galloway because he's coach's kid. He's a smart basketball player, all of this stuff. And I'm not trying to rip Trey Galloway. That is not my goal here. What I will say is Trey Galloway has been struggling for the last few weeks. I mentioned that earlier. He had a back injury. He wasn't doing great in the Big Ten play anyway. He was okay, and he'd have his moments here or there. But the fact about Trey is he can't shoot three-pointers. And so everybody's playing 10 feet off of him. They're daring him to shoot. And every game, he fires a three-pointer, typically early in the shot clock, misses by a lot, and then reinforces the fact that nobody should guard him beyond the three-point line. The thing that Trey does really well is drives and kind of, they're early in the season, finds pocket passes and things like that and really mixes up the offense. He can't do that if defenders are standing 10 feet off of him. It's hard to drive. If guys are standing or are playing that far off of you, it's hard to get in those gaps and create driving lanes and find your way to the hoop. So obviously, he's not helping the offense very much. Defensively, I think he knows where he's supposed to be. I just think athletically, he's not there yet in the Big Ten to be able to chase guys around, always be in the right rotation spot. You see him recovering a lot late. Sometimes he tries to help other people who get lost, which is a good thought. The problem is his guy often ends up doing something as a result. He's a freshman, and he plays like a freshman a lot of the time, and he's probably hit a bit of a wall late in the season, and he's not playing well. Anthony Leal sits on the bench and has not played much. And I know he had a little argument with Archie on the bench one time, and maybe Archie doesn't think that he can defend off the ball or whatever. But it's not like the defense is very good as it is. It's one of the worst defenses in the Big Ten right now. Leal has a very specific skill that could help this team that I do not see in Trey Galloway right now. Available in Trey Galloway right now. He can shoot the ball and he can spread the floor and help open things up offensively. Anthony Leal played 7 minutes tonight, most of that in garbage time, and hit 1 3. I don't understand how those guys aren't interchangeable for you and aren't seeing about the same amount of time. I truly don't, because Anthony Leal does hustle defensively. He's not great on the ball defensively yet, but he has a skill that can help you offensively, which doesn't happen with some of the other guys on the court. And so I just don't get why he's not playing, or at least giving a chance to shine. When things are going terrible in the second half for you, put him in. At least you might create some driving lanes because they cannot help off of him. Or if they do, you've got a young guy you can give some confidence by knocking down some shots. Instead, he's basically been stapled to the bench for 4 games. I don't get that. Coach, maybe you have an idea or can explain it. I don't get why when everything is going wrong, you don't try and put somebody in who you know they can give you something and help you.
I agree. I think Leo needs to play some more. Totally agree with you 100%. I'm not sure that Leo and Galloway have the same skill set. And I'll let everyone know in the room, I'm not defending Archie by talking about decisions that were made. I'm a coach. I've made decisions. You're paid to make decisions that work. Archie's making decisions that aren't working. There, you heard it from me. Archie's decision-making is not working. In practice, in games, everything. It's not working. Will it work? That's not for me to discuss tonight, but it's not working. But I think what he's trying to do there, Ryan, if I'm guessing, is we don't have downhill play. When Rob gets the ball stripped the first 2 games, he's thinking we don't have downhill. Putting L off the ball coming off screens is more to his strength. When you put him as a ball handler, he's not very good. I think he's searching for someone who can penetrate the defense, and that's Galloway's strength. Because it sure isn't hitting the three-pointer right now. And like you said, he's not the strongest defender. My best guess would be that he's trying to get someone to go downhill and make someone else open that way. And he sees I think that's why Galloway was moved ahead of the freshman at the beginning of the year, because of his ability to go downhill.
Sure.
And so I think that's my guess. If you're looking on the bench and you need downhill, you're going to pick Galloway over Leo. If you need shooting, you're going to pick Leo. I just would like to see Leo get more run because I think he's a good passer, and I think he's in the right position defensively, even though he struggles on the ball. I think he needs to play. And so I'm.
And here's what I'll say about
playing both, but.
And here's what I say about your idea there is that it would be a good idea to get a downhill guy, totally understand that. And Galloway has got some vision to pass out of it and all that. The problem is he can't get downhill because guys are playing so far off of him. So it's not really working. You know,
right.
I mean, the idea.
No, I'm not saying it's working.
Yeah.
I'm just
the
saying.
The idea isn't bad, but we've all seen over the past 2 months that he can't get downhill. So
there's not too many ideas that are working. But I'm just here.
That's a short list at this point.
I'm just here to explain how, as a coach, you try to make a decision, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, Andy, any meaningful moments that you thought we need to try to discuss, or unmeaningful, lack of meaning, or horrible moments we need to talk about?
Well, to go back to that part of the discussion, I think and maybe this is just caliber of opponent. Maybe the scouting report is clearly out on Trey at this point. Drive at him defensively, slough off of him on defense. And I think he's getting sometimes in this game where he was getting too deep in the lane when he would drive, that he does have the ability to do some of that, but he was trying to challenge Miles Johnson, which is not going to end well for him in virtually any scenario. And so he wasn't really able to get in and kick out. And in the second half, when Franklin was out, and they did say after the game that he had re-aggravated his ankle, Achilles, whatever injury, he has it. I think because of what you said, Coach, having a guy who was a little bit more apt to drive at that point was the thought process, and he even initiated the offense coming out of the half when he had that. I think that speaks to the larger issue of what in the world you're trying to figure out what to do at the point guard position. And you're 23 games in or whatever it is, and you had your point guards basically get taken out of the game tonight by a team that was ready to take their lunch as soon as they stepped onto the court. The problem is you can't fix that right now because there's really not a whole lot to do. It just goes to me, I think Leo needs to play more. At a certain point, we can't keep talking about, I got to try to get this guy more minutes and this guy more minutes. And Archie's in the position where you can't really you're afraid to build for the future too much and play these young guys a lot because you got to win games because you're trying to get into the tournament. So he's in a catch-22 at that point, and that is a position of his own doing that he's in there, but that's the position that he's in. He's saying, goes on his radio show and says, I need to find ways to play some of these guys more. And then the game starts and things start to get away from you. You play some of these guys, they come in, they throw the ball all over the place. And then it's like, well, maybe I can't do that. And
at some point you got
guys playing tight. You got him coaching tight. It's all bad at that point. That's not really a meaningful moment, but that's I just thought there were a lot of plays. I thought that play at the end of the first half, and I know we talked about it with the ball getting taken away from TJD at the end of the half. Like, to me, that was like the microcosm of the first half. You had something that you did well. They had a chance to go in only down 2. And again, if you can go in down 2, and if you kind of put aside how you got there, if before the game you said you'd go in down 2 on the road against the tournament caliber team, you probably would take it. Now, the sad part is that we actually watched the game to see that, but you had something, you'd gotten the stop, You let up for just a second in the same way that you let up when you got the 15-point lead. Guy gets the ball, makes a shot. You go in down 4. You have no momentum, come out flat out of the locker room, give up points on the first couple possessions, and then it's basically over at that point. So I don't know that anybody missed that because it was such a big one. And I actually feel like going back to the Rutgers game at IU, I feel like they got a tip in or they got some bucket right at the end of the half in the game at IU as well that gave them some momentum coming in, and just felt like IU never really recovered, that maybe they'd stem the tide enough to go in down 2, lose that ball and give up a bucket.
Yeah, it's just there. It's who said it? Someone on social media. Like when you solve one problem, you had the bad starts, which was a big issue for everyone. And who you're going to put in the starting lineup because you had 3 straight games
is
of bad
basketball
starts.
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you couldn't say it any better. Whack-a-mole. So you get the starts now, and now you struggle at the end, finishing halves and finishing games and losing games you shouldn't lose. It definitely is whack-a-mole. So I had the meaningful moment music, and I blew it. Tonight's not meaningful anyway, so we're not going to play that soundbite. Let's go to some statistics, and I'm just, the turnovers to me, it's just a struggle. You can't have turnovers and expect to have efficient offense. And there's enough blame to go all the way around from who's taking the ball, who's initiating the offense to the execution. But there's so many turnovers that I think are self-inflicted. Ryan, your thoughts on that aren't like aggressive, like you're trying to feed the post and the ball just gets tapped away. That's kind of an aggressive turnover. You're trying to make a play, but just so many fumbles with the ball,
a charge or
crossover.
Like that.
Charge is an aggressive turnover. There's just so many. And when you play free and loosen up, you're going to have more turnovers. But it just seems like some of them shouldn't be happening. Your thoughts on IU's turnovers?
Look, and turnovers have been weren't as big an issue early in the season. They've become increasingly a bigger issue. And I think it's because the guards are forcing things. And the guards aren't, quite frankly, they aren't good enough to get away with it. If you turn the ball over and come back next time down and hit a 3, you've made up for that turnover, because your turnover then if it leads to points for the other team, the most it can lead to is 3 points for the other team. 4 if you foul a 3-point shooter, but that's rare. If you can come back down and knock down a 3, you even that out. Indiana's guards can't shoot consistently. So, I know Al Durham's on fire lately, but in general, they don't shoot consistently. And so you can't make up for those turnovers. These guys aren't making up for their mistakes. And that's a problem. And you look tonight at the line, and Jerod always likes to point these out. It's tonight they had 7 steals and no blocks. Well, the 7 steals, 3 of those were Trace Jackson Davis. 1 from Durham, none from Franklin, and 1 from Finney. So they're not making up for the turnovers they have on the other end with defensive plays either. And so one of the big problems I have, though, is not just the turnovers. It's the bad shots, because a bad shot that you don't rebound is as good as a turnover. And they shot a lot of long 2s tonight. And anybody who studies analytics for 2 minutes will tell you a long 2 is the most inefficient shot on a basketball court. And Indiana shoots them repeatedly. If you're going to miss from there, at least take it from 3. It's worth an extra point, guys. You know that, right? Like that has been you've been taught that. And so taking a step in from the 3-point line and shooting a jumper is mind-bogglingly dumb. And Indiana does it a lot. And they take a lot of bad shots. And a bad shot that gets rebounded by the other team for a run out is just as bad as basically handing the ball to a defending guard. And so that's what drives me nuts as much as the turnovers. The turnovers are going to happen. They only had 4 in the second half, which is, having watched this game, I almost fell out of my chair when I read that. But, it's bad offense as much a culprit as anything, and forcing things. And and you'll see the guards a lot of times pass up a good shot and give it up to somebody else, and then wind up taking a bad shot a couple passes later. I don't get it. And I just don't feel like, and whether or not Archie's a good coach or not, I've talked about this extensively. I think he's a very smart basketball guy. This is not a well-coached or well-schooled team. It just isn't. And they might have, good plays. They're not well-coached on a basketball IQ scale. And a lot of these guys have been in the program for a few years now. And I know you can blame the players for making bad plays and all of that stuff and say that, but if your junior guard doesn't know that if he takes a step inside the 3-point line and takes a shot, that it's a bad shot, that's not really on him. You should be like, that should be hammered into his head so much that it becomes second nature. So I just, a lot of the things we're seeing from this team are systemic. The problems are systemic. They're not with individual players. They're not just a coach telling them to do something bad. It's systemic. It's what the program has become. And right now, what this program is a 20-point loss on the road to Rutgers. That's what the program is. Program probably ranks about 10th in the Big Ten. You know, I mean, we're just going to be honest with where we're at. That's where we're at right now. A season we thought had to be getting into the tournament securely to be showing some advancement. This is where we are on February 24th, getting hammered by Rutgers on the road and being 2 games below 500 in the Big Ten. That's where you're at, and we can't ignore that. We got to embrace that and understand it. And I think that a lot of the problems we saw tonight, especially from the guards, are systemic. They're not just, this isn't a one-off. We've explained these before.
Yeah, I think, to go back to some of the shot selection stuff, I mean, you had 10 shots blocked. That was, I did the math. That's over 16% of your shots from the floor got blocked. And again, Miles Johnson has at least as good a chance as anybody to win Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Clearly a good shot blocker. Now, it's one thing for a guy like Trace to go into him or things like that, but some of the other guys driving the ball at him just doesn't make any sense without kicking it out. And you do see guys passing up shots. I think Rob passed up, I think this was him. He passed up what I thought was an open three, eventually dribbled his way to the baseline and kind of pivoted around and ended up taking some off-balance leaner into the play, where it's like you had a much better shot, not even from an efficiency standpoint, just a better shot within the flow of the offense that you didn't want to pull the trigger on, and then got to that point where you felt like you had to shoot because I think the shot clock was running down and you're really trapped and had to shoot the ball. So it's a huge struggle, and I'm not going to say never take a mid-range shot. Jerome hit one in the first half, had a guy attack to close out in rhythm, pulled up at the elbow, made a nice jumper.
It wasn't forced at all.
Those are plays guys can make. Those are plays that Al's shown he can make. So I don't think not every shot chart's going to look like Alabama's. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, go after any Alabama game, and literally every shot is either at the rim or a 3-pointer. This team is probably not equipped to do that, even though that's the way basketball is moving. So I'm not going to, say never take a mid-range jump shot, but there were a few good ones that were taken, but most of them just weren't. They were either just felt like give up shots of there's just too much pressure defensively. I'm just going to get the ball up on the rim and do some of those things. And it just, those are the things that it just is hard to figure out at this point in the season that those are things that are, those are the quality of shots that they're getting offensively. And those are when the huge droughts come on the offensive end, because you're not getting the ball into Trace. You're not doing that, but they became so basically two-dimensional tonight with two guys really doing most of the scoring that you become incredibly easy to defend at that point.
Yeah, shot selection is a big thing for me. Bad shots, like I mentioned that earlier, lead to runouts, and then your defense is in rotation, and it's just not good. And then the other thing is that the thing that gets me is open shots. You see other teams when they get open shots splashing, and Indiana just struggles. So there's a combination of shot selection and hitting shots. We had shots at the rim that went out, and man, that's tough because you miss. I think I tweeted at one point that you have to take care of every opportunity in the Big Ten to score because you're going to be in tough games, and when you have open shots, you're going to miss some, but you're going to need to knock down at least 50% of your open shots, and you're going to need to score at the rim a little bit better or a lot better than what Indiana has done tonight. Any other stats, gentlemen, before we move on to our next segment?
I think I hit the 10 blocks one. That one was alarming to say the least. I think 2-point shooting, I think I saw Jen in the chat say it was about 32%. They were 12 of 28. No, that's completely incorrect math. They were 14 of 43 from 2-point range. I mean, that's just you're going to struggle. A lot of that goes to the block shots. Those are the shots that are getting that are getting blocked by all means. And turnovers, 13 turnovers for each team. The rebounding ended up pretty even. Fast break points, Rutgers ended up with 22. Part of that is, I think, attributable to the turnovers, but I think some of that is attributable to the long shots where there were some runouts because they only had 13 points off turnovers. So the other 9 had to come from somewhere, assuming those weren't all fast breaks. But yeah, I mean, you look at those block and steal numbers: 10 blocks, 9 steals for Rutgers. They were 100% the aggressor after the beginning of the game defensively, and IU basically went into a shell at that point. Although did shoot it well from 3-point range again, 8 of 18. Probably needed to shoot more, quite honestly.
And that's good to hear, I guess. But coming up on the assembly call, we'll hand out our game balls and hit any other lingering storylines. Look ahead to Indiana's next opponent. Then it'll be time for last call. That's all next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Tim Priller, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for free IU Hoops email. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That's IU to 66866. I'm Brian Tonsoni here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms, and we're breaking down Indiana's loss this evening to Rutgers. And now it's time for our game balls. And Andy, we'll go to you first. Who gets your game ball for tonight?
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for letting me go first. I really, really appreciate it.
No pressure on this one, Andy. Got to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with Al.
A or B.
Yeah. There's really only 2 choices. I'm going to go with Al because I thought he got him off to a good start. It's what you'd expect from your senior guard. Like I said before, shot the ball well, 5 of 7 from 3, 7 of 12 overall from the field, and led the team with 4 assists. So I'll go with Al.
Ryan.
Mrs. Morris for delivering a healthy, happy baby boy. Yes, I am completely skipping out on picking a player tonight, but Jerod's wife, Heather, for delivering a healthy baby boy and adding to this crazy, I'd say functional assembly call family we have. That's my pick, so it's all on you, Coach. I'm out of here.
Wow. And what do I do now? If I pick a player, I go against the founder, the man, the director, the creator of content, Jerod Morris himself, and his wonderful wife, Heather, and new bouncing baby boy. We're going to
As always, saving yourself for last in this situation backfires.
Yeah, terrible idea.
No, I
terrible idea.
But hey, we're going to go with Al. There's so much pressure on IU's guards to compete at high levels, and when they don't compete at high levels, Indiana struggles. Al brought it tonight and did what Al can do. Al Durham is not necessarily a top college basketball player, but he is an Indiana Hoosier, and he does have these games where he plays really well. And so when he has one, I think he kept Indiana in a game for at least 12 minutes, and I thought that he competed for the most part through the end. And when he got his 4th foul, I thought that really set Indiana backwards. So we're going to go with Al Durham tonight because we hope that it continues in the next few games. If Indiana has any chance in the next 3 games, you're going to have this performance from Al Durham and a couple other guards step up and have equal performances. Presented by Evansville Security Services. Let's talk about those services from Evansville Security Services. It's the hometown of Calbert Cheney. What more really do you need to know? ESS provides off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals throughout Indiana. In addition, Evansville Security Services offers an accident reconstructionist who can go all over the state. You can count on the folks at ESS to conduct themselves in a professional manner at all times, and all of their off-duty officers are equipped with industry's best equipment. And here's the best part. With an off-duty cop on the job, your security officer won't have to waste time calling 911 and then wait, they're already police. Go to EvansvilleSecurityServices.com to learn more. That's EvansvilleSecurityServices.com or call 812-214-1132. Remember, prevention cannot be measured. Let Evansville Security Services help you prevent a bad outcome today. Mike Roberts, Hustle Award. We'll go to you first, Ryan, this time.
Dang it! I was going to say Jerod.
Maybe it was the nursing staff at the hospital in Texas for making sure everything was done correct.
I was going to give it to Jerod for mental support, but I got to give a player. Trace Jackson-Davis, I guess, 32 minutes, 21 points, 11 rebounds. I'm not blaming him for being a second on the team, second worst on the team with a minus 17. I don't really think there was much he could have done, but another double-double for Trace. And sadly, I think we're watching his IU career wind down in a way I didn't think we would have loved to see it. But, he came out of the gate. He also had 7 offensive rebounds. So that's hustle and that's focus. And I got to give it to him. I just wish the guys around him would have stepped up.
Andy?
I guess I'll go the same way. I had written a play down in the first half where he made a great play to get an offensive rebound maybe midway through the first half after I forget it might have been Jerome missed, but he basically chased down his own rebound against 3 guys in the corner. And I thought, again, when the game was going well, really set the tone from a hustle standpoint. Struggled to get the ball as the game went on, which is a similar refrain that we've probably heard with him. But he feels like the only other really viable choice. I think Geronimo, you could look at his stat line, but he got a lot of that, if not all that, really in garbage time. He played a couple minutes earlier than that. And nobody else had more than 5 points as I look down here. So I guess I'll go with TJD.
All right, I'll make it a clean sweep. I thought his activity level was really good in those first 12 minutes and agree that, obviously it waned a little bit at the end, but, man, he's carrying a lot of weight for this team, and he's stepped up for the most part and done his job. And those hustle plays, as you mentioned, Andy, were something that, again, if Indiana's going to have any kind of hope this season, you're going to need that from TJD. I thought his play was rather outstanding for the most part tonight. So
I got with that in mind, Coach, I got a question for you, and I think you alluded to this maybe a little bit in some of our texts, but he got off to a good start, was really active. I mean, where do you kind of, I guess what happened? I don't want to turn it into a place to blame, but as you look at what happened with him and his maybe lack of touches as the game went on, like where do you, what led to that? Is it Rutgers adjustments? Is it IU getting away from that and kind of panicking a little bit and just guys trying to get up shots? Like where do you come down on kind of what happened in today's game, at least?
It goes back to your whack-a-mole problem. There's nothing worse when you're a coach of a program and you're in whack-a-mole mode. I mean, it goes to offensive play calling, it goes to who you're rotating, and it seems like you're just swimming to find the answers. And when they're not working, it is just sadly disappointing. But they ran some really good pick and roll sets, and Rutgers had a senior in starting, though, I think, or a guy who hadn't started since his freshman year. And so you got to wonder, too, if that was part of the issue, that their defensive coverages weren't so great early on because IU was taking advantage of that. But they did personnel. They put different personnel in there, and they took away some of that. You can see at times after timeouts we run that little that pin down cross screen and that the ball gets to TJD immediately under the basket. They ran that 2 or 3 times tonight, and they usually run it out of a timeout. And so that's an effort to get the ball into TJD. There is nothing more tough than when TJD's your main scorer and he has to get the ball in the block or in the block area to design things to get him the ball. I mean, it works, and then it doesn't work, and then you got to try to find something else. And the opposing coach is doing everything. And Ryan's comment about Galloway, when you're backing off Galloway and daring him to shoot, and then Galloway shoots, that's a turnover. And you can't. it's hard to feed the post when everything's jammed up, and we've just had that problem for years here, going back to Romeo needing to score at the rim and Jawan needing to score at the rim in the last 2 years. Our two best players are 5-foot players, Race Thompson and Trace Jackson-Davis, and that just clogs up offense. You sit one of those guys and spread the floor, that's a great idea, but then you're sitting one of your better players. And that's a tough decision to have to make too, because it cannot work that way as well. So your two best players need the ball on the block or on ball screen action moving to the block. And, you could run cross screens, diagonal screens, ball screens, side ball screens. There are a plethora of ways. And I think that IU has tried them. Sometimes they work and sometimes they obviously haven't worked. And it's frustrating for the young man too, because there's only, he took a few jumpers tonight that were wide open and missed. It's got to be frustrating for him when he can't get the basketball in a position to score, or he's quickly double teamed. So I think it was an adjustment by Rutgers. And again, it goes back to guard play. I think Galloway and Leal are our best post feeders. And that's why I think Leal needs to play, despite his defensive deficiencies. I think he can get the ball into the post better than anyone else. And if we're struggling, need TJD to get the ball, you need Anthony Leal out there. A, he stretches the floor, as Ryan said, and B, he can feed the post. And sadly to say, whether it's development or whatever, we are what we are. We have upper-class perimeters who have trouble getting the ball in to the post or executing offense from the point guard position. And that limits your decision-making as well. So that's my best guess. I know they're trying to get him the ball, but in a 30-second shot clock situation, Andy, you got to put the ball in the kid's hands at some point and say, here's the set we're going to run, and when the set's not run, you got to break down and make some plays. And that's what Harper and Geo Baker did. And we just don't have – we have to have offense designed to work. We don't have that special shot maker, playmaker, and then when things get junked up, it just really gets grinded hard. So yep. That's my take on how difficult it is sometimes to get that in. Tomorrow, AC Radio, you guys will be back, I think, or Andy, you want to talk a little bit about tomorrow's show?
Gluttons for punishment, some would say. No, we'll
talk about this game and break everything down for you again.
I don't think I really want to do that, although I'm not sure I want to do the thing that we are going to do, which is we've got Ed Feng coming on from the Power Rank. We've had him on around March Madness time in the past. He is actually a Michigan guy, so we'll talk a little bit about the Michigan game on Saturday. So that was kind of where I said it's the pick your poison. Should we talk about this game more or look ahead to that game? But we'll have Ed on, so he's always a good guy to talk to, some analytics talk, and we'll go through that. So that's what we got planned. Hopefully some good questions from everybody out there, and we'll see what we can do.
We're always here for your listening pleasure, regardless of the outcome of the games that have passed or the games that are about to smack us in the face soon. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. Okay, guys, it's time for last call. Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, look, guys, this is where we are. It's a 20-point loss on the road to Rutgers. I know it finished at 11, but if you heard my explanation earlier, all of that was in garbage time. That was a 20-point loss on the road to Rutgers in year 4 of a program. I just don't know what's happening with this team or how we can see it possibly getting better. I just every week it feels like the same stuff happens and nothing improves, and it's the same guys on the floor doing the same things over again and struggling, and occasionally those guys manage to put it together. A couple guys hit shots and Indiana comes away with a win, but it's not because they play demonstrably better every game. And tonight was just a complete failure after about the 10-minute mark for Indiana and had a 15-point lead and lost by 20. And it's staggering to see at this point that there are no answers. And I just don't know how you fix this, and I don't know what to do. These are all nice kids. They try hard. They certainly do. They play hard. That has not been an issue this year. But they don't play well. They don't play smart. They don't do the things that they're supposed to do. And I have to put that on the people putting them in those positions. And I have to talk about the coaching staff there because they know what they have with these players. And yet they keep running the same stuff and keep putting them in the same positions, hoping that it will get better. And it hasn't. And it hasn't for 4 years now. And so we're at a point where the entire Indiana family is talking about the same thing. And we're not looking at a macro view of it, but I'm talking about just this game and the last week. The calculus has completely changed for this team with these 2 losses. They look like they could be headed for an NCAA tournament berth, and they took a hard right turn and played terribly against Michigan State, especially in the second half. And then for 3/4 of the game tonight, got run off the floor by Rutgers. Those are 2 teams that cannot make you look bad this year, and they have. And this is the first time since Rutgers joined the Big Ten that it has swept Indiana, and that means something. So I don't know. I don't know where to go next. I'm usually the guy who can't stop talking about this stuff, and I don't know how. I don't know how this gets better. I don't see this getting better because we have a long stretch of it not improving and being the same story every single time. So I don't have answers for you guys. I wish I did. We'll be here to talk about it every time that it happens and hopefully provide you guys some relief and maybe some catharsis from these because we certainly need it as much as you guys do. But I can't look at this objectively right now and feel like it's magically going to get better at some point. It just feels like the same record skipping over and over and over. And it's a sad place to be. And tonight was tough to watch. And I think we all feel like it was tough to watch.
Andy, your last call.
Yeah, it was a tough watch. I remember I came back into the room at the under 4 timeout and just asked my wife, like, how is this not over yet? How is this still going on? I think that's pretty telling. I guess the one thing that Ryan said that this is not a great way to end things by, and this is not pining to be what Rutgers has become, but Rutgers has turned from a program who had no real identity whatsoever, limited history outside of the Quincy Doobie years, when they were in the Big East, but they, Steve Peichel had a vision. It's really come there, and you know what you're going to get when you play a Rutgers team. You might not like it. It might not be the style of play that you like, but they are tough as hell, and you know what you're in for every time that you go out and play them. And I think that, to me, is the difference. They've turned themselves into a middle-of-the-pack, decent Big Ten team that if they shoot the ball well, they can compete with a lot of people. If they don't, they're still going to fight you on defense and really play with a toughness that, again, you know what you can expect. I think that's my biggest issue with where IU is right now. You have no idea what you can expect. And we can kind of joke around and say these games all follow roughly the same script, but you don't know what you can expect in terms of, like, what does this team really hang its hat on? What is the identity of Indiana basketball right now? And I think that is to take this game and put it into a macro view and to take this game against an opponent who years ago was a laughingstock and what they've become by really buying into that identity. It's no different. I heard an interview with Tom Allen today on the Andy Staples podcast, which I recommend everybody to go and listen to. And he talked about what it really took to build what he wanted to do when he started with the whole LAO thing and getting guys to really buy in and getting that to really build momentum. So in some ways, what IU football has done is a little bit like what Rutgers has done in basketball. And you just don't see that for whatever reason. Players, coaches, none of us are close enough to really know. Everybody can speculate and point the finger at this guy and that guy and whatever else. But the reality is there's not enough buy-in. There's not enough togetherness in moments that really matter to say this is what the identity of Indiana basketball is. And the result is you just kind of roll over when things start to go against you in that way. And so I don't know, maybe on some level it would be nice to be the level that Rutgers is. Not where they are in the league, but just in the sense of that identity and knowing what you can expect. And a few years ago, that'd be a heck of a thing to say, that Rutgers has more of a basketball identity than Indiana does right now. But that's the sad reality of it as we sit today.
Yeah, it is. I have been a defender of Coach Miller for a long time. I'm a defender of coaches because I just know what it takes when you're in the coaching room and you have a struggling season. I know what it takes when you have a winning season. But there are big questions. And so for the listeners that wonder if I'm just an apologist or not, there are very big questions about where this team is at. And I think that's very fair. I was expecting an up-tempo program, heavy guards with some toughness, and we don't have that. That's just not where we're at as far as an identity, as Andy says, and we're seeing the same old. Any progress that you might be able to squeeze your eyes and squint and see has been at a snail's pace, and that just doesn't cut it. And so, obviously I'm more disappointed, and I will talk to our fans about be disappointed, be frustrated, vent the way you have to, but be careful about the players, their families, and hashtags and all of those things. It is Indiana. It's a school we appreciate. It is in a very tough situation, and it's not going well. But be careful with your venting here in Assembly Call, in a chat mob. We had some comments tonight that I don't appreciate about players. And your tone matters in life. And you have the right to criticize. You have the right to be angry. You have the right to vent. But decency in this world is needed. And if there's any reminder of that, life is valuable. And we just welcomed a new member of the Assembly Call family into this world, and Jerod and Heather have given life to a wonderful boy, and that's what I'm going to hang my hat on, that the Indiana fan base got better today because of a new Morris. And hopefully we can groom him by the time he's in middle school to take over the show so we don't have to host. And we could just pop on and say our words, and little Coach Morris can take over. It is not fun. It is not good basketball. The program is in disarray right now at all levels. But, keep rooting for the Hoosiers and fight through the struggles, because it's been a tough year for all of us, COVID-wise, work-wise, everything. There are other issues out there. And while we have high expectations for Indiana basketball, we got to hold out hope that sometime before I am 6 feet under, we get back there. It's not looking very good right now. That's honest. But make sure we all celebrate life today, especially the Morris family. Congratulations. There's nothing better than being a dad. Jerod knows that. Andy knows that. Ryan will soon know that, maybe down the road. But there's nothing better.
That's how rumors get started, Coach. That's how rumors get started.
There's nothing better
Slow
than
down, boys.
Being
Slow
a
down.
Dad, Jerod. So congratulations from us. We're very happy for you and Heather. And that'll do it for this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall.com. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. As tough as it can be, we'll be back to talk IU hopes again with you tomorrow night on Assembly Call Radio. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Hey, thank you to the multiple hundreds of people who are tuning in. That's a tough one to listen to. I can speak for Ryan and Andy. It's a tough one when it's on repeat for many years. So,
Yeah, we've had bad seasons before. We've all made it through. One thing I would say is I think that Jerod should name his son Jerod. First of all,
that would be
Davis.
Good. That would be
Deron
good.
Davis special. But yeah, there's always positives in this world. We just got to focus away from Indiana basketball for now to find them.
It's just bad. It's just in a bad. It's in a bad place. It just is.
It's a bad. I mean,
really
it's
tough.
They can't get out of their own way. It's a vicious cycle every game of how, oh my gosh, they played really well for like 6 minutes. They got it working, and then where'd that go? So we're all there. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. It says something that after the exact same kind of probably even worse loss than Saturday. We had over 300 people up here at 11:25 Eastern time.
It was like 350 at one point. I'm shocked.
I thought I saw over 400 in the little live thing up here.
Yeah. Oh, there definitely may have been. I
apologize about
Coach,
putting the message on there. I couldn't figure out how to get that off, and I don't even know how I threw that on there.
I had to go find it, and then I hit something to remove it, but I didn't know if I would just remove it from the
was
chat.
it just in the comments?
Yeah, I think when you hover over the
Jerod
comments.
showed once, with this new system, if you hover over some of the comments and you hit something, it can display it on the screen. So if you think about like if
someone's asking you a question or something,
or a press conference quote that you wanted to do and like talk about during the show, like you could do that, which is a great idea when we actually know what we're doing with it. But I was like, I'm just going to scroll through and see if I can figure out how to do it. So we figured it out.
So you need to you need to hit exit on the same one that you hit display, probably, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something I just hovered over it. It was like highlighted because it was displaying, and then I could hit remove or something, and it went away. So, Coach, we're going to have you on for sectional breakdowns here instead as things really start to go off the rails.
Yeah.
So.
Man, you talk about nervous, man. It's time. It's going to be watching film, and we're playing against a Division I kid, Purdue's assistant coach, their son. He can get 35 in a heartbeat, and he can shoot.
Who is it?
It's Shrewsbury. I forget his first. Brayton Shrewsbury. He's a sophomore. Micah Shrewsbury's son. He got one shot against us in the regular season, and we won by 25. But the kid can play. So that's our first round.
Next Wednesday for you?
That's next Wednesday. And then we've beaten everyone in the sectional, and we've beaten everyone in the sectional by double digits. So it's really nerve-wracking because you got the mental side of the kids,
Yeah. I mean, we did that already. Yeah.
Yeah, we beat.
Where's he going to school? Where's Shrewsbury?
We don't know
going
yet.
To school?
I don't know.
He's a D1 kid.
He's a D1. He's frail, and he's just growing into his body. He grew quite a bit height-wise, and he's got a weird shot. So I don't know how that plays. But he's probably definitely
never
Missouri
had a
Valley, Missouri Valley at least right now. I think that level and can probably move even higher.
Is he at West Lafayette?
Yeah, he's at West Lafayette. So,
wait, let me look him up. Oh, so he's like a sophomore.
Yeah, he's a sophomore. So I don't know. I don't know where he's at in the recruiting ranking things, but that always scares you in a one and done situation. That the kid just gets unconscious, but
yeah.
Well, worst case,
guys.
Coach, there's an IU game next Wednesday, I believe. So worst case, IU game doesn't go well. You guys win. I want to elated post game Tonsoni, and then we can just talk about your game. And then
when's IU play that week? Tuesday or Wednesday?
I think it is Wednesday. I'm almost sure. I don't have it in front of me. I'll look real fast, but I think it's Wednesday.
Yeah,
I think that's when they play the Michigan State game. They added back to the schedule.
So yeah,
so apparently is now.
I tell you, winning for those fans who are still around, winning's fun. Yeah, we'll hopefully get back to it at
What's
IU.
That like?
We're 16-6 and we can guard, but we shot 33% the other day in a 41-37 win. So I don't know that it's.
I'd have been yelling about their shot form from the stands, Coach. One of these days, we'll all come out and watch one of your games before a meetup or something. We'll come in on like a Wednesday. Watch one of your games and then go to the meetup that weekend or something.
You would see me do my best, Mike Roberts, when I have the scout. Man, I'm heard on tape and loud, and other coaches can't.
Andy, would you make a good E for Western if we did the shirtless paint thing? Or
I got a lot of weight loss situation to handle.
Yeah, me too. But it's
or I'm willing to commit to such things.
It's something to aim for. We can all cut like.
I'm more of an O. I'm more of an O right now.
Okay,
I know that's not in it, so that's not really going to be an option. But
that would be great.
My shape is more conducive to that right now.
High school basketball is just so fun to be a part of.
It is.
It's good when you're 16-6, and we probably should be 19-3. We lost 3 games right after COVID, and. By 8, triple overtime, and 3 to teams that I think were probably better than. But
yeah, I was wrong. IU plays on Tuesday next week.
I'll be.
It is Tuesday.
State game is Tuesday. So
But anyway, anyone
All
know the
right,
name
guys.
of Jared's son? Do we have
They
a
have
name?
not. I asked them if they had any names, and they said they were really struggling. They wanted to do a post-birth name. So I don't know. They may have come up with it by now, but they kind of were just like, my sister did that with all of her kids, and it actually worked out pretty well for them. They did okay on the name. So just test the personality a little bit, see what they're into.
I mean, what's wrong with Ryan? Ryan or Brian?
What about Brian, but with Bryan? I think it's a combination.
Oh yeah, it's a combination.
Brian Andrew Morris. How about that?
That is where we go.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what.
Or you could go Brandon, and combine all three of our names.
Brandy.
Maybe not Brandon.
I don't think that's. I
don't think that's a good idea.
No. All right, guys. I got to get out of here.
All right.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Yep. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being around.
Everybody who's listening.
All right. Later, guys.